afternoon. So this afternoon we assess the past few weeks in South Africa and specifically the continued onslaught against women. This Women's Month we look back at the barriers, we assess our progress made in a patriarchal society, but we also have to ask this question. Why are we not safe in our homes and practically anywhere we go? Women are being killed, maimed and raped, and another pandemic that we have to fight in this country. ENCA reporters Lindelo Masikane, Dustin Thathia, as well as Nqobile Madlala will talk us through the horror stories they've covered of late. While we ask, what are the authorities doing about the scourge? What conversations do we have to have with ourselves, our men, and society for things to get better? Well, without any further ado, let me bring in our colleague Nqobile Madlala, who's been covering a number of stories for us, but particularly the one of the more than 80 foreign nationals who were arrested pertaining to the rape of 8 young women. Talk to us about the story. Can you just give us the facts from the first day until today?
We heard about the story on a Thursday. Our understanding is that this happened at a deserted mine dumps in the West Rand, where of course it brings outrage in every other corner of this country where women were raped in such manner and they were found in that area. Now we understand that the authorities went in to have task teams to raid the area, to look for people there that were in the area, to try and put together what really happened on the day. Now we moved towards when the authorities now had about 67 people that were arrested on that day, which was on a Friday.
Yes.
And then later on that weekend, there was about 17 more people that were arrested, which eventually brought us to a number of about 84 people, which we understand 2 passed away. 1 is in hospital, and then we had 81 people that were now appearing before court in Krugersdorp court. Now, when we get to Krugersdorp, we understand that none of these people have been charged with rape yet.
My goodness.
Meaning that the police are still have to do things like ID parade. We understood from the minister that there were biology dogs that they had sent in to look at human anything, to sort of kind of figure out how to put this together and find DNA. Now the police, whilst we were in court, we later found out that out of the 81 people, there's 20 minors. Now, it puts a question there, how are the miners in the illegal mining? But that put that aside. 61 people still appearing because they just contravened the Immigration Act. Not much has been linked into this GBV Act. And, of course, a lot of people came out. They came out in their numbers to support the victims.
Holding those placards, I must say, Nqobile, around GBV to show how desperate they are for solutions or for justice. Because it was honestly unfortunate when I was with you and I kept on asking that are any of these men linked to the rape? Because people came out in their numbers and I read those placards that they're saying an end to GBV. We had Action SA that was there, a number of political parties, but they honestly assumed that there was some sort of a link between those illegal miners from then and the rape of those women, but it wasn't the case.
Not the case, indeed. I mean, I must say a lot of those placards even looked into saying no bail for anyone who has done such. And I mean, all those parties also came out and they didn't hold back, really. They said that they want no bail. They want the people held accountable for what they have done. But at this point, we're not sure if these 61 people are even linked, as the police are still going through that identity parade. Now, the understanding is that on the 10th of August, when court goes back, we should at least have an idea how many people have gone through this process and how many can be linked to what is going on. But of course, that still were part of the reason why the community then decided, you know what, if the police are not going to do this, we're going to do it for themselves. And now we saw this playing out in Kagiso. You saw us, we were on the ground, we were speaking to the people, a community that is angry. The first interview that we did with some of the leaders in Kagiso, they were very clear and they were adamant that they're worried about the women in their lives, they're worried about the children that they have, the girl child at this case. What happens if it happens to you? And so the community had decided, you know what, we're going to go to these mine dumps. And we've heard from the communities, I mean, they allege that some of these illegal miners have rifles, something that the community may not have access to. And so they were willing to risk their lives. We went down there with the community. We saw how angry the community was. They got some of their illegal miners, alleged illegal miners on the day, but there was no police on the ground. There's a breakdown of communication
For quite a while. Again, while we were interacting, it was clear that these community members were ready to take the law into their own hands. They had publicized this a day before to say, with or without the police, we're going to tackle this problem head on. That they may not be linked to the rape, but were being terrorized by the Zamazamas. But there were no police. Police were just at the entry into Kagiso, but nowhere inside the area.
Which is where everything was happening. Now, the people and some of the leaders were very clear. They said that they had spoken to the police. And if you remember, the first time we heard of the shutdown that it was coming was on Monday. Now, it happens on Thursday. After numerous talks, they said the community had meetings, they had spoken to officials. And in fact, when we did our first live, we saw the police also go head-to-head with some of the residents that had closed off the main reef, but still no police in sight inside. So the community went to these illegal miners or to these deserted dumps. And what happens then? There's a clashes. So community starts getting these illegal miners. And you heard from the police now talking about the fact that Mayor actually was one of the people that said that they rescued some of the people from the community, but they wouldn't have to rescue them if they were there in the beginning. Now it continues. But what's scary about all of this, and this is when you speak to the leaders say we don't have the armor that these guys have. We don't know what will happen to us. They were scared. Despite having the community do that the whole day, they were still worried about their lives because they don't know what does this mean in the future. What does it mean for the community? What does it mean for the women? Could there be a retaliation? Is there enough manpower? We heard from the Deputy Commissioner also speaking about the fact that they are going to get more people on the ground, but which clearly spoke to the fact that they didn't have enough people on the ground. So the community was really scared. In fact, Fundo, we spoke to some of the community leaders, and I want you to just listen to this interview. It was the end of the day, and he was telling us, and he was talking about the fact that as the day ends, they need to go back home, and they are scared of being in their own houses.
When we push them from here, they move to another area. So the whole aim is to push them until the borders.
All right. But now, we've seen some of the arrests. How do you feel as the community, understanding that there are more people that have been arrested that might be somehow linked into being illegal miners?
To be quite frank and honest, the people that we have arrested, they are nothing to the number of the people who are available here. If a proper raid will be done, you will see we have more than 3,000 illegal immigrants here. And today we've arrested plus minus 20-something or 30-something. That is nothing. Hence we are saying we need police visibility so that the very same community will not be left victimized.
Do you feel that you could potentially be victimized by some of these illegal miners?
I know. It has happened before. Hence everyone now, it's been that thing of we are scared to even talk. But we know they will be coming back, like a video that was shared within our community group. Today, they were holding their guns up in the air, singing their slogans. That's an indication to say they are coming. Even when we are coming from these bushes, coming towards Mkandash Hostel, they were playing their own slogans, volume out. But the minute we arrive here with the police, they switch off that radio. That is a sign. They are indicating they are sending a subliminal messaging to say we are coming. And now the most important thing right now, at 6 o'clock, we are experiencing load shedding. So in the dark, that's where they operate the best.
So does that mean that the community is scared then?
Yes. Even myself, I'm scared. I won't say I'm not scared, but I'm brave enough to tackle this. Hence we said, if this is a revolution we have to die for, so be it. But all of us, we are scared.
Now, what would you like to see happen now that, like you say, you are scared? What would you like to see the police doing now?
The only thing that we need the police to do is visibility. At the same time, as they were able to go with us to look for these people, they can continue working hand in hand with the community. Because we understand we don't want any loopholes. You know how money works in South Africa. So we don't want such things. So when we are with the police, we safeguard against such activities for them not to happen. Because these people, you see police vans coming in, taking chochos, transporting them with their own soil. So already that shows us that our police force, they are working hand in hand with them, especially the local ones. Hence we appreciate this task team that actually came, who are not from this area. And I love the spirit that they had to say we need to go in there and attack. But the ones we have here, I don't know if they went to training or it was envelope for them to become police.
All right, just lastly, as I close off briefly, please, what happens tomorrow?
Like I said, we as the community, we are up. We will not stop until this thing is done.
Nqobile, you know, this particular allegation of police working hand in hand with these zamazamas is one that we heard throughout the week. What are they saying? What has been their response to this?
Look, I think even when we put that towards the minister, they had already said to us that the only way they will investigate this is if they've given proof. We heard it in Alexandra when there was the shooting. We heard it in numerous areas, and they keep saying, bring proof forward so we can investigate people. I mean, I suppose it's fair for SAPS to say they need proof, but if you're on the ground and you're a resident, how do you give proof to the people that could potentially come back to you? Because this is what those communities are scared of. They're scared that they can be victims, but they could be victims of both illegal miners and the police.
Just like this gentleman, because his face is exposed and he is as vulnerable there, and told us that actually he is scared to go back home because we were recording. He's there, and if people or some of the zamazamas decide to single him out, to say he is the ringleader, we need to at least harm him, and then it will send a strong message to the others to not have such an operation yet again. It's honestly unfortunate that community members have to go through this. So have police at the very least committed to be in the area going forward?
Well, the police have committed, have made a lot of commitment really at this point. They have committed, though, that they are going to work with some of these leaders and also to sort of find out what's happening on the ground. But really the people need the action, and they need it now. And I suppose this is where the Imbizo with the minister and the national commissioner comes in, which is currently happening. But the people still wants to see action. I mean, when we went back and we started in West Village, but when we heard from some of the Kagiso leaders, they said that even though the police had said they were on the ground, they were not enough. This is on the day when Kagiso shutdown was going ahead. Now, the next day, the police, the leaders wake up and they say, it wasn't enough. Is there enough? We know that the force still needs more boots on the ground. And the question really is when the minister will ensure that that happens, and what happens in the meantime whilst they're in school, which is what we've heard. Now, some of the people that have been victim to these crimes, as some of the leaders like Nicoline Trom, she's one of those people that has been victimized. And right now she's in the front and trying to fight for a community, but it's been difficult. I want you to listen to the interview that we did with her, and you'll understand the pain that every single person in that village, in that space, goes through, because this is the tale of every single woman that has gone through so much in the hands of these illegal miners. This is a community that has decided to do just like what Kagiso has been doing, go from one place to the next, just looking at the places that might potentially be illegal miners' houses. We've seen them burn it down. We've seen them burn the acids and burn some of the houses. And of course, we've also seen them burn some of the bush here. You'll remember they complained about the fact that the bush was the area that worked against them because these zamazamas would sleep in these areas. But whilst they came to these mine dumps in this area, they found some of the evidence and some of the things that the zamazamas clearly had supposedly stolen from some of the people in this area. And I'm going to bring in some of the community leaders, Nicoline Trom, to speak to us about this. Nicoline, to find this must be concerning.
It's actually a very surreal moment for me, because this is where they dragged me. This is seeing where they could have killed me. It's, yeah. So we did find most IDs, bank cards, and some clothing, more especially undergarments for women.
Nicoline, I know this is an emotional moment for you, but if you could just share with us, I know it's hard, what happened? And to be here, what does it mean for you?
On the night of the 23rd October, my family and I were going out to go buy food. That's when they appeared out of nowhere when I drove out of the driveway. They appeared out of nowhere, 20 plus of them. My husband was beaten to a pulp. Even when he was unconscious, they kept on hitting him with the back of a gun. They wanted to take my girls out of the car. When I fought that at least they shouldn't take my girls out of the car, they dragged me out of the car. My house is not far from here. And they dragged me all the way up to just when we were entering now the thick bush.
And what happened to you? A difficult time indeed there, Tony. Nqobile, you'll remember, is one of the women that has been in the forefront assisting this community. You can see there it's very difficult for her. It's been something that has affected her, it has affected the family, it's affected the community. This is not easy. Plenty of these community members have highlighted of these stories, how they have been affected by what has happened in this area, which clearly explains why they have decided to take the time to take whatever they have to come into these areas to ensure that they can burn these bushes down. I'm sorry about what has happened to you.
Yeah, it's just that it's all coming back. Especially when I see a place that, for me, I was giving up trying to save my little girls. Because when they dragged me out of the car, the first thing that I did was to think that if they get me, at least my children would be safe. And I'm talking about a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old that they were trying to drag out of the car, but luckily they still had their seatbelts on. I've never been here. Coming here today and to actually realizing that it has been since last year, October, that I had lived with this pain. I had went through counseling, I had seen a psychologist, but it's something that you learn to live with. It doesn't get out. And I hear when the minister says that that girl that was raped by one person should consider herself lucky. There's no luck in this, especially when you know that you see their rape, that they would do anything. They would see how this is, see how gravel it is. I've got marks. My left my left body has marks because they were dragging me, and you can't forget it. It doesn't matter how many they are. You cannot forget it. And I tell you now, that girl is a walking corpse. 10 years down the line, this will still haunt her. It will still haunt her. It will change her perspective where relationships are concerned. She would want to move on, and most of the mechanism of women moving on from this, they turn into prostitution to deal with the pain, because already they're telling themselves that I am nothing. It leaves such a bad stigma.
I'm sorry, Nqobile. Thank you very much for speaking to us and for sharing that story with us.
Nqobile, what a very painful interview. Very difficult, I'm sure, even for you to listen to Nqobile sort of narrate the story of what happened to them as a family. But I think we mustn't tire with airing some of these horrible and gruesome things that happen to women. We need to amplify the voices of these women to allow them to tell their stories so would-be perpetrators can actually realize, because they would have been watching, realize how much destruction they cause. And at least the police force would also realize what women go through and how much more they need to put the boots on the ground to protect women. But how is she doing now?
Well, I think, like what she said, that was taking her power back. And even though it was so hard, it was something that she needed to go through emotionally. So, like she said, you'll never forget that. You don't forget it easily. So I think as a leader, she's expected to be okay. But we do understand from what she was saying as well is that counseling is what she goes through. And she's still considering going through more of that. But this is the pain that a lot of women carry. And we cannot stop talking about it, Mfundo, because women go through this every day in this country. And we need a police system that will be able to support women who go through such things.
Hopefully we do see change and the policing system does in fact support these women. Nqobile, thank you very much for your time. That was our reporter, Nqobile Madlala.